this full circle thing. You come from the innocence of childhood, and whatever happens naturally and spontaneously in childhood, you go through life and you find an identity. But what I talk about a lot is actually that identity, once it's sort of seen to be a structured identity, a mind-made self, if you like, that moving from that where it moves back into this unknown nature, which is more like when you're in childhood, but knowing, like being aware, that awareness blends into the whole thing. So it goes from the innocence of childhood to, I guess, intelligent awareness doing what it's doing, and with an identity which gets contracted and forms a mind-made separate self identity, which most human beings live in and as, and then that can actually then be seen as not needed. It's actually a construct that limits and contracts, and then that seems to break down in whatever human beings look into this sort of stuff, and then that comes back to being a bit more open. So that bubble that you're talking about becomes, everything is that bubble, and it seems like that awareness, that life expressing that way, has been looking into it in its own bubble and kind of knowing something, and then it's going through this, okay, better get an identity in life because everyone else seems to have, and get back to reality, get real, make something that makes sense in this world, in this society. It's not actually it doesn't sound like it's your true nature. It sounds like your nature's already open, and you're trying to sort of get it to become normal like everybody else. But everyone else isn't. Everybody else is already living in this. It seems in this a dream state. This asleepness. And when that sort of breaks down, I think you'll find it quite easy, maybe not, to actually integrate what you are, and that bubble will become everything, I think, because it's already happening. You're already doing it. And also, for some reason, you turn up to a talk like this, which is pretty much based on letting go of those identities. So I'm not going to encourage you to find your identity, by the way. I will encourage you to look at what your identity is, first and foremost, because you're trying to find that identity, but actually the identity is just vapor, it's thoughts anyway. There is a human being beautifully expressing as an individual, an independent expression of life. I just see all of this as intelligent, energetic form appearing as individual human beings, and they're beautiful, and they've got characteristics, they're unique, they have, experiences and, independent thought in that biology, in a limited way. And the first thing that happens with human beings, well, the thing that happens with most of society, is that entity, that identity that we're taught is us, gets contracted into I am me, and I am separate, and I have to interact with everything that's out there, which is not me, and therefore I know where I am. That kind of makes sense with the biology and the instinct for survival of this biology, which is, I've got to protect this, this has to stay alive, this separate bit of life stays alive. And in that, with intelligent thought, human beings have this way of thinking that blends that biological instinct for survival with intelligent thought and identity, and that identity is that separate self that is a mind-made separate self-identity. And what I often encourage people to do is just look. It might take a moment, it might take a year, or it might take a lifetime, it doesn't matter. But you just keep gently looking at exactly who is that first identity that is I. And most human beings say, well, of course I'm me. I'm John, that's what I am. What are you talking about? What's all this business about looking into the self? It's like, no, really look at exactly who that assumed identity is. And most people go, as I said to Bernie, I've got a family member that just goes, well, I'm not suffering, why would I need to look into that? Everything's sort of okay. And yet, most people have some level of suffering, which is caused by this contraction into a self that's made out of thoughts, and life not quite going the way that thing thinks it should control everything. So I don't know whether this is too much too soon for you, and I might have just turned the dial up to 11, and I don't know whether I've just done that with you. So sorry if I have, but Anyway.
I thought you had done. For a moment, my brain was scrabbling, but then you said something that really helped. It just made me suddenly think that I'm trying to be who I was in a different way, rather than just let go of everything I became since and let myself be that again, because I have got the consciousness now that I didn't have then. And I think I'm making it difficult. I'm excuse my language, but asked about faces, the phrase that's coming into my mind. It feels like when I just stopped trying and just, when I was younger, what I do remember is there was no effort. I didn't try to live up to people's standards. I didn't try to be someone. I just bumbled my way happily through life, spent most of my time with the cat because she made most sense to me. And life was good and life was simple, and it always presented itself in the way it needed to. And I think you have just helped me to begin to understand that I'm making it complicated. I'm trying to do something to get somewhere I already am, rather than just let go of all the stuff I've put in the way in between. So that's what I've taken from what you've just said.
I'd say that's a pretty good take on half of it.
Right. The rest of it still scrambled.
So no, as I can see Bernie smiling, because this is a very different exploration. What I'm sort of suggesting here, and this is, as I said, it is turning it up. It's just like most human beings in the world just assume that because it's been done the whole life. It's like a reflex almost. It's like breathing. This I am doing, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing, and I've got this, and I've got to work this, and I've got to do, and I've got to do, and the I thing, the I, and it's always just coming from that first reflex of, well, I'm this and I'm that, and I've got to do, and I used to be young, and I used to do this, and I used to be a different person, and I used to be and all I'm saying here is nothing is supposed to be taken away, or I think we had a conversation, Jane, and you were and I was saying the separate self-identity can be seen to be illusory, and you went, oh, I don't like that. I kind of like being me. I like being a separate person. I like this personality. Was that you? Were having that conversation?
I quite enjoy my uniqueness and my...
Yeah. I think I'm
probably enjoying that.
And I think I've referenced that conversation in a different way, because it's very common. I've had it a few times from different people, and they go, well, I don't want to lose my uniqueness, my individuality, my personality. It's lovely. I like this. And I would say life is absolutely beautiful expressing that way. Don't go changing. Like, let life be totally vibrant and happy and live and joyful, and enjoy that experience for sure. What I'm saying is, and that will still happen because it always has been happening. All I'm saying is that somewhere in there is an assumed entity, an identity that is formed in the mind. It's a combination of mind and body, but it's usually in thoughts. That I am a separate entity. You are life. There is life. There's a biology. There's life. It's energy, and there's the uniqueness and the infinite intelligence of life expressing uniquely with that personality in that biology, doing it this way. What I'm looking at is, before talking from that assumed entity called I, just look at exactly what that is. What is I? Just maybe consider that a baby is born. And it's open, it's life. And as I said, I have no idea the complexity of what it might inherit, but it's life. It's pretty spontaneous, usually in a mostly happy place. It's just living, it's just life. And then at about 2, it gets educated and gets taught language and who you are and what it does. And in that early childhood, perhaps there was a structure that once that entity, the identity was learnt as Jane, as it's been taught to be, and separate, and it does develop an identity. I mean, it certainly does develop, human beings develop this identity at a very young age, 2 onwards probably. And so in those early years, an identity was developed, and yet as a child, you don't have any control over what you absorb and how you are indoctrinated. So you absorbed as that as that identity, you absorbed what you were exposed to, and that might have caused a lot of unpleasantness. That's just hellish. So Jane, the personality, this expression of life, this intelligent awareness being, expression, it's really just part of the whole, but it has this coalescence of energy through biology and intelligent interaction. So it goes, oh, I don't like that. And it finds a way to construct a new identity that's a bit different to that gives it the peace and protection and security that it needs. So maybe there was a constructed entity when you were young, and then you found a way to construct something that was felt a bit more secure, a bit nicer way to live as an identity in this society, because all society is expecting you to be this way, by the way. All society is expecting you to play the game. If you don't play the game the way we all do, it's like, you don't mesh. There'll be friction. There'll be something not quite right. So then Jane learns how to be secure in that identity. And where we are now, Jane, is you seem quite happy with everything. That's okay. You've got things going on. This is just another exploration. So it's not necessarily trying to fix anything. It's just that there is a curiosity, and we just met and we had a chat, and something seemed to resonate. I enjoyed the chat as well. We just seem to. It's not everyone that is even prepared to consider that there's other things that might be not so much in the box, and you seem to be a bit more open to that. So I'm not suggesting any of that gets taken away. I'm suggesting, is there any part of that expression, that experience, that life, your life, who you are, I'm going to say it in these terms, that ever has discomfort, suffering, dis-ease, or anything? Most of us would say, I'd say, oh, yeah, heaps of stuff going on that seems challenging, actually. And I can't work out why. It's always, Bernie and I have had these conversations where it's like, the conditioning that's in the body and in the traumas that are trapped maybe cellularly in the body, or mental things that's subconscious. You don't really know why something's not quite right, but I'm just talking about innate open flow of peaceful happy living. And I'm not talking about taking away anything that's real, which is the personality, the uniqueness, the expression, the joy of living, all of those things. They've always have, most people would say, I've tasted that. I mean, there's times when I'm just really happy, in a flow state, life's good, life's flowing. And I'm trying to weave together a couple of ideas here. One was that flow state when you were a young child, and everything just seemed to be okay, before the identity perhaps turned it into something that was a little bit uncomfortable and like, yuck, no, I don't like that. I've got to find a way out as the human being matures, and then it works out a way to live in society with the other. I got it. I can see how I can fit in here with this identity that I've constructed. It's all the conditioning. I've been exposed to all of this. This seems to be working this way now. It's okay. I can function now, and mostly it seems pretty much okay. But it's not really, because there's still something that way back when it was spontaneously flowing, felt really open and good. And what I'm sort of looking into here is embracing all of that. That's okay. All of those personality traits are just firing up, and we're just gently looking into who's the one that's, before you say I felt like I was, before you say, and then I am making a better version of myself, and I've got control. I've got the will to change these things because I am me. I'm just saying life is expressing that way, but exactly, just gently look at, before you say anything, before you do any thought, who's the first point? Who's actually where? What's the I? What is that I? Where does it reside exactly? Because most human beings say, shoop, no, not going there. It's most human beings, if they even touch on this stuff, go, no, there's a fear there that I'll lose too much. There's a fear that I'll lose myself. There's a fear there that this identity that I've created in thought will die. And I can tell you, almost 100%, the people that have kind of delved into this and then get to a point, there is a point where you go, I don't really want to proceed, because it's like something is going to break, something's going to die, something feels like it's going to be lost. It's fear, massive. There was here, there was a moment where there was absolute fear, and I can still remember the words. It was deep in meditation on a retreat, and I can still remember the words were, "Whoa, stop, don't go any further. There's something breaking in the mind. There's something decontracting in the whole process of intelligence and awareness. There's something decontracting to a point where, whoa, stop, don't go any further. Something's going to break. You're going to have a psychotic shift. You're going to have a psychotic break if you go any further." And that's the entity, the identity, the self that's going, whoop, the ego self, which is a mind construct, saying, "Stop, stay this way." And I remember the words was, "I'm going anyway." And then that opened up, and everything decontracted, and that was just like it was a massive opening, but it was that was a massive fear, and it felt like I just flashed. It felt like standing on the top of a bungee jumping platform, opening the arms and just closing my eyes, not knowing whether the feet were attached. And I have bungee jumped, so I know what that's about. Not knowing whether the feet were attached, and then going, "I'm going, and I don't know what's going to happen." And it feels like a death. It feels like a death is probably too severe, because that really latches into the physical death instinct, which is that cannot happen. But it's more. There is a definite fear. So I'm not trying to scare you off or say, you have to do this. I'm just saying that was the experience here. But what can happen after that is all of those personality traits that are there already, all of that life that is expressing beautifully as that human being called Jane, which ultimately is vibrating energy and all of this, and it's all one thing anyway, basically, with intelligence, and this awareness is flowing in and through as Jane. All of that won't go anywhere. Nothing real is lost. The only thing that might be lost is this identity that keeps the perspective of life corralled into these barriers that are created in thoughts, which are basically a human instinct to stay safe, stay alive. It's all very tangled. So I'm not trying to be threatening in any way, but as there's a curiosity, there seems to be a yearning in humanity and human beings when they start looking into these sort of things. And it's like, I don't know what it is. There's something that's not whole. There's something that's not really the way it probably should be flowing, and I don't know what that is. And this is an exploration of what that is. And these are just words. This is a conditioned human being talking, blah, 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 doing all of these things. And none of the words are actually what we're talking about. This is far beyond. This is, most people have got these things that just happen. They go, I have no idea. Something more than we can work out is going on here. And I'm talking about that. So it's a resonance into that supreme aware intelligence that seems to be flowing and expressing this way. And this is just a leaning or a pointing into that, but forget the words. Just blah, 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 all just blah, blah, blah.
All of your words, John, have been quite transforming just listening to you, and it's making me grin at the moment because you've said the right things. I couldn't imagine anyone convincing me that the identity I have today was something I could let go of or even consider letting go of, evolving it maybe. But in you talking, it's like suddenly that realization that, oh my goodness, yes, he's right. There was an identity that identified with hell. Just like there is an opposite end of the spectrum identity that's trying to idealize life. And you're
beautiful.
None of those is relevant. Not one. It's a seesaw effect. Nothing gets anywhere. And as I'm listening to you, it's like I'm suddenly watching those two identities. And the thing that you said at the beginning that just sent joy through me, which was the beginning of me thinking, actually, the thought of letting this go is exciting. The thought of discovering what there is exciting was, you said something at the beginning about, you were joking about us being in the world and being other than everybody expects, and how we can't not conform. And when you were saying that, the thought of being just me, unashamedly me, and not conforming was the most joyous feeling in my heart. it just, that's what makes me smile, is just, I don't know, just to be and not to try, not to conform. But when you were talking, suddenly my mind could move out of fear and into an excitement at what it would be like to let go. I don't feel fear anymore. You've taken me from one point to the other in those words. So when you say they're just words, they were meaningful words. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely, because there is nothing to fear. That's the ultimate. The end suggestion is also there's nothing to fear apart from what is created in thought from that entity that doesn't want to let go of itself. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to listen to any of this. You don't have to take any of this on board. You can switch off and go about Jane's life the way it's going. There's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with any of this. It's just so much more open, so much deep, so much more unknown, but it just seems much more fluid and happier. And there's the tensions, and they still arrive. The tensions and the contractions and the conditioning still fires up. We were having this conversation the other day with Bernie. It still fires up, but it's actually seen as just this biology with its conditioning and the intelligent brain that's going on and the human being, which is all part of this one life. I mean, it's not even one life. There is life appearing in this beautiful energetic soup of awareness that's aliveness. This is what we are. And the awareness that is talking, the entity, the I that I am, that is talking here, is the same energetic, connected energy, beautiful, intelligent, vibrant awareness that is happening there. That's not there. It's not even here or there. It's all part of itself. And the biology of a human being is expressing as a beautiful human being in that. And the brain of a human being, the biology says, I have senses, I feel things, I see things, I hear things, I think a certain way. So therefore, it's all coming from here. But actually what's happening is the body has arrived and is expressing as part of this, and the body is interpreting. The body is part of this experiencing itself. That's sort of what I always look at. It still has this feeling of being a separate identity. I don't think that, I was saying to Bernie the other day, I don't know that this character, John, will ever actually cease having any memory or remnants of the personality and character traits. But what's happened is they're still accessible, but it's all opened up, and there's so much more peaceful, joyous flow and celebration of life. So that there's nothing real. But what was lost is the original entity of John being a separate self. That's just when that just went, that was the bungee jump falling off and went, this is all one thing. And then later on, a couple of years later, looking at walking across a field and thinking, and actually seeing that what's there is this, the same. It's not, the miracle is that this can be overlooked. And that's what I think human beings are yearning for. There's just this intelligence is playing in biology, but at the same time, this intelligent awareness is kind of, with using biology, I don't know, we're making stories that I don't really know, but it seems to be waking up to itself, finding itself, comprehending that it is the whole. It's all one thing. It's not even one thing. It's all, it is, just is. And the human being's expressing as part of that, it playing in it and witnessing itself, seeing that the separation created in thought, all of this is part of the play. And it's really, this character now is like a node, an actor playing in the field. But what it is knowing that it is the same thing that it's playing in and as. It's all one thing. It's not, there's just energy here coalesced through a human biology and brain. The senses are happening which trick the mind into thinking that's a separate me again. And then it's known that that's not. I often say it's Christmas time, so we'll say it's like Santa Claus is, Santa Claus is Santa Claus. Yeah, Santa Claus is Santa Claus. Santa Claus is Santa Claus. And then one day the child goes, oh, Santa Claus is actually a guy in a suit. Oh, okay. And you can never see Santa Claus again the same way. That's like this identity of I. Once it's actually looked at enough, and then you can't make it happen philosophically, I don't think. But meditation opens it up, or just quiet living, or living the way different people live. And at some point that can just relax with enough space to sort of start opening and seeing. And then there's a philosophical understanding. Bernie and I were talking about that you can get philosophy, you can work it all out, and I know there's no separate self because, and then it's like, no, it's not that either. It sort of helps. It just guides. They're all pointers for this to keep this beautiful intelligence to keep working with itself. It's just working with biology. And when there's like more open trusting or openness with this, that intelligence just seems to stop searching for the answers and goes, oh, it just is this. Doesn't actually have to understand it because it's already this. It always was. It always was. Nothing's changed. Just the entity that's created in thought, the story, is just seen as a story, which is okay as well, because that story can still play. Can be, chances are it'll always play a little bit. And in this society, when you're walking around in society and everyone is me, I, separate, Jane, John, everyone lives that way in this society, it's almost like it doesn't, I don't think it's just going to stop functioning, because it has always functioned that way and it never really was. It was always a thought, always a ball of thoughts. There was this, I think we talked about that first letting go, that was seen that the identity, the self, was just a ball of thoughts, creating this perpetuated identity, this ongoing perpetuating identity of self. And once again, this is all very early to discuss this with you, but I was actually relieved to hear you say, okay, because I was waiting for you to go, I have no idea what you're talking about. You lost me there at square one. And I was thinking, I didn't mean to do that. I'm really lovingly, enthusiastically, I'm passionate about this. You can see, sharing this joyful celebration of awareness being itself. And Bernie, we haven't allowed you a moment to get a word in.
Quite happy with that, sitting here.
It's a different way. This is a different conversation,
I'm just fascinated. I know I'm at a point where something needs to change. I don't know how. I've done everything I can do on my own.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And there is nowhere else to go. So I have been open to new things, and I'm enjoying every second of this.
Ah, beautiful. That's lovely to hear. When you were saying something has to change, this heart just opens, because it's like just wants there to be peace there. It just wants there to be peace there, because it's available already, right now. It already is perfect.
It would be lovely. I didn't realise until you were talking just then that is one of the things. I feel as if I'm empty in my mind, but when you were talking, I'm realising, no, I'm lacking a piece that I used to know in here. It isn't in here. A piece of mind where I'm not witnessing and understanding and learning and teaching, and where it's just, in my head. That would be so nice.
And may I suggest, right now, that's already what's happening. Right now is already absolutely, completely, perfectly doing what it is as it is. And then there's layers and layers of identity and thoughts and processing going on, and construct and conditioning. That's how you're supposed to be and how other people are supposed to treat you because you are separate. None of that's real. All of that's just a bunch of thoughts that have been constructed into stories that you believe, because it's an assumption, and that assumption fits quite nicely into this biological instinct for survival, mixed with thoughts that have been ingrained and indoctrinated, and they gel together quite nicely as a shell, as a construct. And I'm just saying, the biology will still do what it's doing. The biology will still want to survive. I don't know, human beings just have a biology. The heart beats, the organs work, breath automatically happens, cells replicate. You as the entity that's in mind doesn't do any of that. Most people go, yeah, I don't divide my cells. I don't digest my food. I don't really make my heart beat a certain way. All of that happens, and then I'm somewhere after that. I don't know where, but somewhere. I started in the head somewhere, I think. I'm driving it from back here somewhere. I'm the bus driver in the back of the head. And then you go, really? Where? And people go, well, you know, me, I. Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. What is that? It's me. It's me. I'm the identity. I'm me. I'm the personality. All of that personality is happening in this vibrant expression of intelligent awareness, a life. All of that's happening. Nothing's going away. That's still happening a certain way. The only bit that I'm suggesting is the I bit, the assumption of the identity that is created in all of those thoughts, stifles it, makes it finite, creates suffering, because it's not real. And it keeps trying to say, I know I've got to do something to find a way out of this. I just don't know what it is. But that's what it is. It's a self-created barrier. It's a self-created finite identity that doesn't exist. It's too much for some people to hear that, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. The I identity is a mind construct, a story in the head. And yet every experience that can be had is not going to be taken away, because that personality and that feeling of being an independent me in life can still be experienced. Life seems to be doing that. Life seems to just have this impulse to create this separation, I don't know, so it can interact with itself as a separate part or separate being, but it's all one thing. So it creates this thing. So that's unlikely to completely be eradicated. You know, you're not just going to become, you know, a void sitting on a rock with no interactive intelligence. It's still going to happen that way. It's just that the part that may loosen is exactly what this I is. It doesn't have to be let go of completely. It might just happen when it happens, or it might not. But just play with that idea that maybe I shouldn't take this I identity too seriously, and still enjoy everything that's happening with it. You know, you can imagine, you know, it happening on a screen, or the actor on a stage, whatever way you want to imagine it or conceptualize it as a way to break down the seriousness of it, and then say, so if this is all just energy, and this is energy as a human being, and this intelligence, a lot of people would think this intelligent consciousness is coming out of this body and this brain that's forming this, okay? And what I'm suggesting here is all of this is part of the one vibrant, intelligent awareness, and the awareness flowing as this body and perceiving through this body is all the same thing. And whatever's being perceived in the senses is part of this awareness experiencing. And what it is experiencing is actually completely connected to what it is. It actually needs everything that's interacting with it. It is all one thing interacting with itself. But there is an appearance of a human body and a human being feeling like it's separately having this experience as a node in this. But what I'm saying is, just looking into that, we have this intelligence to look into what's going on. You know, it just seems to what's happened here. I don't know why. It happens all over the place. Lots of people look into this sort of stuff. And when I say people, there's this discrete human beings expressing as bodies, dense matter. But really the identity is mostly constructed in thought. I don't really know the complexity of this energy, how, you know, I'll never will be able to explain it completely. But there is just something here that this identity that I've always assumed myself to be and never looked into is actually just layered on top of what's already there. And what's already there is just peaceful, harmonious, vibrant expression in this. And what this all is complete, is immovable, and doesn't need to change, doesn't need to go anywhere, doesn't need to become anything else. It's one beautiful, vibrant, alive isness. And things are blossoming all over the place in different ways as everything. You know, they're not even separate things, they're not discrete objects, they just seem like that. And they're changing, constantly changing. And human being blossoms, expresses, thinks, feels, loves, hates, good, evil, all these ideas happen. And then the human being stops being a human being, but it is never born as an entity, because that entity was just a thought process from the human being. So it's a constructed little entity, a story entity that arrives and is blossomed in the human being, in the thinking mind, and then it stops that when that human being dies. But the ultimate, the energy that is being expressed, changing as it's not really born that way. It's always here. It's always complete. this isness, this beautiful, complete, connected, beautiful, whatever it is. This isness is complete. It doesn't need to work itself out or get better or change or get anywhere. It's beautifully complete. Ultimately, that's what you are. And then all of these experiences happen in that. And then all of those experiences get an identity created in thought. And that identity creates a lot of suffering. So we're just looking at, maybe, is that real? Feels real, but it's not real. Without being just thoughts. It's just stories. So that's what we're playing with here. Mind bending sometimes. What do you think, Bernie? Put you on the spot.
It's in a way you could say there's a process when the awareness starts to look for the self. There's a noticing that the self, just like you're saying, the self is the separate self. The sense of being a separate self is only ever made up of thoughts, and it's as simple as that, really. There's a noticing that the self is made of thoughts or concepts, and in that there's a recognition that thoughts can't do anything. Thoughts are like a content in the awareness, but they can't do anything. And all along there had been a belief that I was responsible for living my life and making sure my life goes okay. And then when you notice that in fact that I that is supposedly responsible for living my life and making sure my life goes okay is just made of thoughts, then, well, that's clearly just impossible, because it's thoughts. Thoughts can't do anything. Thoughts just appear. Yeah, thoughts are like inert content, and the experience is seen to be experience is seen to contain thoughts, contain interpretations, and conceptualization, and that's what the I is made of. But the experience, when looked at closely, is so much more than just the thoughts. And so in the recognition that that I was a thought, it's almost more, rather than letting go of the self, it's recognizing that the self was just a thought. So there's nothing to be let go of at all. It's just seeing it for what it is. And then the experience, reality itself, is so much bigger than just what's contained in those thoughts. And yet, for many years, reality seemed to be only my thoughts. It's like a gentle noticing that there's much more than thoughts.
Yeah, and I'll just add one little bit in there, and that is that this intelligent expression as a human being, with its brain and all of that, still learns and does learn and changes and adapts. It's like life is a self-learning experience. So we think, I learned how to do that, I worked that out, and I did this and I changed that, and it's actually, if you just maybe just gently thought, what if that I thing, we'll just put that aside a sec. What else could be going on? It might be that this alive intelligence is self-learning life that's expressing vibrantly here without this identity that's created. It's still going to happen. Just like when people are in a flow state and they're just really good at something. There's just no thought, it's just happening. Because this intelligent life that is going on here does react perfectly. You ask any sports person, oh, what sort of thought was going through your head when you kicked that goal? And the soccer person goes, Well, with no thoughts, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to kick it. You know, this vibrant intelligence knows what to do. Life knows what to do better than the constructed entity that we think we are. How are you going, Jane? You sort of still there?
No, oh yeah, my brain's working overtime in some ways. What you were saying about thoughts, and I've spent a lot of time trying to, or just deciding to empty my mind, let go the thoughts, let go the identity. And when I was listening to you, it was like, oh my goodness, if I don't have to drop anything and I just let everything be, there was a part of me thinking, well, what happens to those thoughts then? And then you carried on talking. And it was as if I could just feel as if those thoughts just lift up and disintegrate into that. Where they move into it, and then they just become part of it, as if that doesn't feel like letting go. That feels like becoming, rather than trying to keep dropping bits of me all over the place.
And what if there is no one to let go of anything, and there is no one to become anything, but it is already that? So what's being opened into is actually what it already is. That's sort of what I'm suggesting. It's not, you know, it's actually already that. And just what's happening is the mind's trying to, you know, categorize it. It's okay. But actually it's just already doing that. Sounds like you're very close to just this maybe opening to what it is. Jane, it's very common for this to be exhausting when it's first looked into, because it's like, oh, hang on. And everything, the ego, which is a thought construct, will do everything in its power to keep things the way they were. It's like, whoa, hang on. It can be quite exhausting. It's like there can be a lot of turbulence that happens while this identity is being destabilized. And if it gets too destabilizing, exhausting, confusing, just take a break. Just go, I don't know, don't care. Don't need to think about it for a while. Just do that. And then it'll seep back in, because what's been said here will seep in. If it resonates, it'll resonate and it'll seep in and do what it does. If it doesn't, it's okay. It's okay. It's not resonating that way. It's okay. It feels closer to truth. It feels innately, peacefully calm. And that's usually an indication intuitively that you're close to the truth, close to what's real, without all of the mind noise interfering and making all this stuff feel awkward and suffering and tense and trauma-ish, and all of that stuff seems to happen. And when it's peaceful, this feels peaceful, even talking about it feels like joyful, peaceful is as it is. Closer to is as it is. And that's all. Well, we might say goodbye there. If anyone's got any more stuff they want to say?
That's beautiful. It's great to meet you, Jane. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
And you, it's been so good. Thank you both so much. This has been mind-blowing, literally, in the best possible way. And I so appreciate it.
Lovely. Well, we might do another one next week if people are around. I'm going down to Sydney on the weekend, but I'm back next week. So keep an eye out if I get motivated, which I probably am. I'm loving doing this. We might do another one next week. And if you're available, I'll see you there.